It's been almost 2 weeks since the tragic death of Senator Kimberley. Since then, the Labor Party has been gripped by allegations Senator Kitching was bullied and ostracised by some of her Senate colleagues. It's led to calls for an independent investigation. One person who wasn't surprised by these allegations of bullying is Emma Husar, the former Labor MP for Lindsay in Sydney's West. She's had her own battle with people inside the Labor Party, making her own allegations of bullying and hostile behaviour. She joins me now from Perth. Emma Husar, does the Labor Party have a bullying problem?
Peta, thanks for having me. I think that the Labor Party has a cultural issue at the heart of it. I think it's driven by factional power plays and by the pursuit of power, which we've seen repeated over the years, Rudd Gillard years, then we had the Albanese Shorten years, and you can absolutely bet that my situation and the one that Kimberley found herself in was factional power plays at play.
In Victoria recently, Keneally a Labor backbencher, crossed the floor, and she outlined then the history of bullying she's faced. We know a minister in the Victorian government, Jane Garrett, Labor minister, horrifically bullied in her time in office. This isn't just a problem with bullying, this is a problem with women inside Labor, isn't it?
I think that the Labor Party have prided themselves for a really long time, and I wouldn't say prided, I would say hidden behind this mantra and this ideal that we've got 50-50 representation on our benches. That 50-50 representation of gender balance that they like to cite doesn't run through the executive, it doesn't run through the factional structures, and it doesn't run through the unions, which obviously have a lot of influence within the Labor Party. So they do have a women problem, and some of us women become very inconvenient, and they do everything in their power to ostracise, to push us out, to ensure that the shame that is created when you do bully somebody keeps that person silent. So there is a sick and toxic nature to the party. There is a culture there that really needs to be shaken up and woken up.
You've raised some pretty horrific allegations about what happened to you not long after you were elected to the Parliament. What impacts has that had on your health and well-being? And did you raise your treatment at the time with senior Labor figures? And if you did, what action did they take? What was their response?
So I had an issue right from day one when I walked into the Sussex Street office. I was sexually harassed from the moment my feet hit the ground, and I raised it then with the General Secretary. I raised it when I got into public office. There are horrific stories about my campaign. I had an all-male led campaign team. One of them created a Tinder account in my name, and I've never ever spoken of that, Peter, because of the shame that that particular event caused me. They created a Tinder account in my name, which was that the profile settings were set to, my area, and they were using me and that platform to try and drive votes up to support my campaign, as though as a woman, as a smart, well-educated, well-experienced woman, I wasn't enough to attract votes on my own. And this kind of treatment was just basically the start of it for me. That narrative about who I was and what I was being set up for me even before I walked into the chamber for the very first time.
I just find that staggering. That's your own campaign team. I mean, I know politics is rough and tumble, and I've worked on campaign teams myself, but that's disgusting. That's disgusting. When you raised your concerns, and I know you're a pretty strong-willed woman, what was the response of Labor officials and indeed your parliamentary colleagues when you spoke out?
I raised it with Tanya Plibersek. We had a very lengthy discussion, and both of us ended up in tears by the end of it, and she apologised to me, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she had felt that this had been going on a very, very long time, and that it had been stamped out since she joined the Parliament 20 years ago. It was raised with Tony Burke's office, it was raised with Bill Shorten's office. But I think that the fact that you're a strong, independent, fierce woman, people just think that you can shrug it off and that this has no impact and that we're some sort of magical unicorn and it has no effect on either our health or our well-being or our state of mind. Now, during the reporting period of, when all these allegations were being made, I had media camped in my street. I had people chasing me down the street with cameras, following me around the neighbourhood. And the Labor Party didn't even have my address on file so that they could send someone from the party to check on me and to make sure I was even okay. I developed a heart condition, so I was medicated for that, and I was also treated in the hospital for that. My, physical symptoms that, impacted everything from, menstruation to my hair falling out to an irritable skin condition to dramatic and rapid weight loss, and then obviously the impacts that it has on your mental health and your well-being well after that. And I think it's important to keep in mind here too, Peta, that the sole complainant in the issues that I faced, the only person who was ever named, because I was hearing that there was 22 staffers and then there was 12 and then there was 15 and then all these numbers of people who'd made complaints. There was one person who made a complaint, who of course alleged that I was Sharon Stone and all kinds of just disgusting, horrendous things. I moved 3,000 kilometres away from my hometown just to feel safer. Now, the Labor Party's inaction at the time, their inaction since that time, their indifference to my treatment is really problematic.
And of course, it's not just the institution of the Labor Party or the Liberal Party. I mean, the Liberal Party has plenty of issues and they've been ventilated over the last 12 months. Of course they have. It's not just the structures, but we know in the case of Kimberley Kitching, her treatment was at the hands of 3 other women. So just more chromosomes, female chromosomes in the parliament isn't necessarily the answer. It's about character. It's about fair income, robust processes to deal with these sorts of complaints. When you heard Penny Wong, Christina Keneally, Katie Gallagher were the ones that were behind the treatment of Kimberley Kitching, claims they of course deny, claims that her friends now have gone on the record very clearly over the weekend to substantiate, who do you believe?
Well, my recollection at the time and my treatment at the time was exactly as Kimberley's friends have described since her passing. And I'm deeply saddened that she was going through this. And because of the way the Labor Party treats its women, they don't feel like they can come out and speak to them. And it's a shame that Kimberley didn't reach out before her untimely death. But Christina Keneally treated me in much the same way that's being described. She ostracised me, she froze me out right from her pre-selection and her campaign in Bennelong. I was very helpful to that campaign, and Christina virtually ignored me after she used me and got what she needed out of me, and then continued to just trounce her way through that place like she owned it and treat me with such disdain that she couldn't even manage to say thank you to me for the help that I'd given her in her inaugural speech. She thanked everyone, including the family dog, I think, and name-checked everyone else in the party who'd been a help to her, but conveniently left me off the list. Penny Wong's treatment of me, there were plenty of bystanders after what happened to me, Peta, like none of them, except those who stood to benefit factionally in Anthony Albanese and Tony Burke, came out and supported me publicly. Now, it's interesting because lots of people have seen what's happened to me and they've been quite sympathetic to my cause. They've been quite kind to me. And the first question that they asked me, and they've asked me ever since this happened, was, how was Tanya Plibersek in all of this? Or how was Penny Wong? Because those 2 women are regarded publicly as quite fierce, quite strong on women, and both of them were quite silent during my treatment. Penny came up to me, incidentally, she didn't seek me out after I returned to Parliament after all of the accusations had been flying around the media, and she said, what happened to you was terrible, like I've never seen anything like it, it was disgusting, and she had all the buzzwords to condemn. But I couldn't help but think as she said that to me, Well, why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you do something? We tell kids in schools, Peter, all the time about being bystanders or being an active bystander or calling out poor treatment. Now, here's Penny having a good old, bandwagon with me, I suppose, if you like, and saying it was horrendous and calling it out, but behind closed doors. Now, Penny would be somebody that I would consider strong enough and a very, very well-resourced senator and quite articulate. Why didn't she come out? Because obviously she knew and she could articulate that behind closed doors, that what had happened was horrendous and disgusting and despicable treatment, but she said nothing publicly.
Is it good enough that Anthony Albanese repeatedly rules out an inquiry? I know that Kimberley's friends and supporters have been pretty vocal saying that there must be an inquiry. What's your view?
If the Labor Party have nothing to hide, which they claim they don't, then absolutely this should be a matter for a proper, robust inquiry, and not the kind of inquiry that they subjected me to with their barrister mate or the ex-colleague of the person in my situation, which was more like a hatchet job than anything else. But they should subject themselves to all the rigours of an inquiry.
Emma Husar, you honour Kimberley, but you also show your own strength by speaking up on this issue tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we've approached the Labor MPs referenced by Emma Husar. They haven't responded yet, but if they do, I'll bring you their responses when we hear back. It's worth noting that late last week, Anthony Albanese denied there is a toxic culture inside Labor. That investigation that Emma Husar references, the investigation by the New South Wales Labor Party in 2018, found the allegations of sexual harassment and lewd conduct against Emma Husar were on the balance of probabilities not supported. It also found there was no basis for her to resign from the Parliament. She contests that.